Today's episode of Children of Heroes took us about an hour and a half north from London to St. Neots, where we interviewed Madame Sue Hines, daughter of Flying Officer Ondřej Špaček.
Thank you for participating in our project Children of Heroes. Your father served as a pilot during the Second World War in the Royal Air Force. Could you tell us how he started flying and how he escaped in 1940?
Yes, he hadn't intended to go into the Czech Air Force or anything like that. I think he was going to help his older brother who had a drogeria in Brno. But then there was a call for the formation of 1,000 pilots when Germany was developing what it was going to be. And so that's what he did. And so he trained to be a pilot. When Czechoslovakia was invaded, he realised that either you could stay in the Air Force and fly for the Germans, or you were going to be in a bit of trouble maybe. So he decided to leave and leave the country. And I suppose he heard that others were doing the same kind of thing, weren't they? Spoke about it once, but anyway, it sounded very exciting, but it must have been terrifying, of course. And got to Istanbul and somehow got all the way around to Agde and Sète and those places. And then somehow he ended up in Bordeaux and actually left France from Bordeaux when France had been invaded and landed in Falmouth, I think, in England. That's on the ship over from France in 1940. Who's in the middle? We think that's Joe Chapka.
When did he join the Royal Air Force?
I suppose it was 1940, right from when he first started and went into the bomber squadron that was formed, because he became a bomber pilot. And it was 311. Yes, 311. Yeah. Yeah.
And what were his strongest memories from this period?
He never really talked about it. And I was a early teenage girl, and I wasn't interested, I'm afraid. I mean, he met my mother at a dance. My mother lived in Wolverhampton, and the squadrons based at RAF Cosford. On Saturday nights, they used to bus the airmen there was a big dance in the Civic Hall every Saturday night to a big band, you know. And of course, I suppose all the local girls used to go. And these chaps must have seemed very interesting and attractive. I just found a small photograph, actually, of them together in a garden somewhere. And in my mother's writing, so it is right, it's not a guess on my part, it actually says June 1941. So he must have met her quite early on. They actually got married in 43. I know he used to, once or twice, he flew over their house and waggled his wings when he flew over, just for fun. His actual battles, I don't really know anything. No.
After the war, he returned back to Czechoslovakia.
Yes.
How was his life there?
It was fine. It was lovely. I mean, they planned. My mother must have already been expecting me at the end of the war, but they planned to live there. I mean, she was going to live there. She was very happy. And they went back, and he was going to continue being in the Air Force. That was going to be his job. He loved it, loved flying. He went back to Brno. His family were round about there. I was born there. I have very, very happy memories of all the family there.
Following
but yes, then obviously it started to get more difficult. Yes, he moved from Brno to Hradec, that was the big training school, I think. They had a new flat and everything, but things began to get obviously difficult. And I think it was the British government arranged for British wives and their children to be able to leave. I think they sent an official plane, which is what my mother and I,
it means
as a 2-year-old, I was 2 years old.
You went and your mother to go back to
England. Yes, to bring back to England.
Your father
he couldn't go, obviously, because he had to stay.
And he was kept.
Yes, I mean, you weren't allowed to leave, were you? This is April 48. And between them, they had arranged he was going to get out secretly. And somehow he got in a group and they were meant to go to try to get out into the American occupied part in the southwest of Germany. Then they had to wait for an important person to join the escape party. And it was Janošek. Of course, he was a general. He was being watched. And so when he went there, or was almost about to go there, the whole group was arrested.
What happened then?
Then they were all taken to I can't remember what it's called, the little prison just by Loretta in Prague, where they were all arrested. And Domeček, that's right, Domeček, where they were all beaten and tortured and told they were traitors. And he was put on trial with several people. I think Bricks is quite a famous one he was with, and Joe Chapka is another one, and Janošek as well. And most of them, they got 10 years in prison. Janošek, of course, because he was a general, had been going to be hanged, but that was commuted to 18 years, I think. And then he was sent to various prisons. He was quite a long time in Bori, in Plzeň. And then he was sent to Jakimov. Yes, that was horrific. Again, he didn't talk about it much. I know he had one Christmas in solitary confinement. Yes, obviously, although a lot of it was horrific, there were some wonderful people there. One man I know who'd been an important doctor, saved Dad's life, he said, because I think he had double pneumonia, and nobody, the guards or nobody was going to look after him. But this man, I don't know what he could do, but anyway, he said he saved his life. And we met up with them afterwards. And then I think just after 1953, after Stalin had died, I think there was a bit of lightening of the mood, a bit softening anyway, somehow or other. Some of them, there were rumours that some of them were going to be allowed out, and then one day he just was.
He was released.
In 1954, a bit earlier than the 10 years. And then he was sent to Prague. I don't think he could please himself where he went, and was told the job he was going to do, which was some kind of construction work. And that's when my mother knew that he was alive and out. Because at the beginning, there were a few letters exchanged, but very few. And then there'd be long gaps when she would hear nothing at all. And the letters she got, were, is it called redacted?
How did he manage to join you in England?
They were just letters exchanged for a while. And my mother got in touch with our local MP. He was going on a visit to Prague. So my mother plucked up her courage and went and just told the story. And when he went, I don't know what he did, but eventually my mother got a visa to go to Prague to visit my father in the spring of 1956. And she did. So that was the first time they'd met since 1948. And she went to see various people. I suppose the most important one she went to see was Fearlinger. She was quite a shy person, but she could be quite forceful when she wanted to. She came from Yorkshire. And I know at one point he said, well, Mrs. Špaček, why don't you and your daughter come and live in Prague with your husband? I don't know what she said, blamed it on me, I think, as a child, about to go to secondary school and all this kind of thing. And so he said, we'll see what we can do. And anyway, it moved on from there. Our MP kept in touch with the embassy in England and in Prague. And in September, my father was told he could have a visa to come. And in October, he came.
How was it for you to see him?
It was very odd because, every, like New Year, when you make a new wish, or, when you have the chicken bone and you break the breastbone, we do, and you say, make a wish if you get the big bone. It used to be, may my daddy come home, my daddy will come home. But when he did arrive, It was very strange. He came to Wolverhampton station on the train with a cousin, and he had this huge coat down to the floor, great big, thing, and a very smart trilby, and a huge big black leather suitcase which contained his complete worldly belongings. And he had this very, very thick Czech accent, because obviously he hadn't been speaking English all this time.
What did he do here?
Well, when he came back, obviously, it was his dream. He'd be able to fly in some capacity again, but it was no good. It was a bit of a crucial gap in aeronautical development. The RAF didn't want him. He was 42. His accent was still very thick, possibly. His language may have still been a bit broken and clumsy. I can't remember. So he couldn't get a job with that. So he didn't know what to do. So in the end, just so he'd got a job, he went to work in Goodyear's factory. They made great big enormous tyres in Wolverhampton, and he became a factory worker. He was there for many years until he found a job. He discovered that he could really do things with his hands, do-it-yourself things. He found he was very good with his hands. And he got a job being a kind of technical assistant in woodwork and metalwork and kind of art departments in a couple of big secondary schools in Wolverhampton. Yeah, it was lovely. So it was really nice. So his last few years of working life were really lovely, yes.
And now about you.
Oh.
You studied English and decided to become a teacher.
Yes, it was just...
What's the reason for that?
I was a primary school teacher, so I studied English at university and then did the extra year to become a primary school teacher, which is what my mother had done, which was not her plan that I should become what she'd been, but there you are.
Did you like your job?
Yeah. Yes. And I had no ambition to do anything else. The last few years, I was mostly on call at the school just at the top of the road, which was the primary school that my children went to. And they could call me up at 8:30 in the morning, you say, and say, "Oh, so-and-so's not coming, can you come and help?" So you'd get changed and just run up the road. And so you got used to being a member of staff, but as I say, in the privileged position of not having the full-time pressure of being there all the time. So I was very lucky. It was lovely.
After the Velvet Revolution, you found out that your distant family left.
Oh, yes. Well, we'd always been, after my father was naturalised, it was after 5 years, you had to live 5 years. And me, I was an alien until I was 16 here, because in those days, I think you were what your father was. But then when we were both naturalised in 62, we went back to Czechoslovakia every year for the summer. And the lady who left me the house, her father had been the man who my father had lived with when he was out of prison in Prague. And so my father and this lady had become very good friends, and she was lovely. And we always stayed with her whenever we went back to Prague every year. And she had no children. She was married 3 times, but no children. And she always used to say, we'll leave the house to you one day, maybe. And we used to think, yeah. But after 89, obviously we could. That actually is the view from the upstairs window. You could see the cathedral and Petrine, and it was wonderful.
How has your Czech heritage influenced your life?
I don't know. That's very difficult to say, isn't it? It was wonderful having so much family over there, because I had very little family over here. I'm an only child here, and I had cousins, and they all had children and aunties and uncles, and it just all seemed wonderful over there. It was lovely. It really feels like a second home. We did used to think, perhaps we'll retire there, or at least part-time retire there when we're retired. But, you have children and they have children, and so we never did. But no, we absolutely love it there. Really, really happy happy times.